On this episode of Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us, we meet Weston Brandon, a speaker, an author, and a songwriter who rebuilt his life through loss, faith, and sound. His story reminds us that resilience isn't about what breaks you, it's about what you build after the silence. Let's welcome Weston Brandon.
Once I was a drifter, all alone away from home, searching for an answer in my soul. This program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are.
Hi, I want to welcome everyone back to another episode of Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us. I'm your host, Wild Willie, and today we got with us Weston Brandon. Weston, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your night and being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
So a little bit about the podcast, how it kind of all got it started is I've had a very rough childhood. So music has always been that outlet that helped me feel and learn how to properly express my emotions. And there wasn't a whole lot of resources when I was a kid on needing help or finding people that's going through the same struggle you are. So my big plan was to have an easy resource for someone to say, hey, I've seen this guy's podcast. I've heard his story. I've heard other artists that are dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever the struggle is. I'm not alone. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and kind of what you got going on?
Yeah. So like I said, my name is Weston Brandon. I'm 29 years old now, but when I was 23, my wife passed away 2 weeks after she gave birth to my son. So my son's 6 now, and I've remarried since then and had a couple more kids, but that's the most common, like the signature story that if anybody looks me up, that's, probably see clips of me on podcasts or clips of me on stage speaking, talking something about, from that time. And that experience completely changed, obviously, everything. But at the time, I was very successful with my career. I was successful in, I was checking all the boxes that the world tells you need to check to consider yourself a successful man, right? I was married. My wife was pregnant. We had a house. I had a really good job. And we knew, like, where our kids were going to go to school. Like, we had the whole thing planned out, right? And then my wife, she gives birth to my son super, super early. She was diagnosed with what's called an incompetent cervix, which sounds super judgmental, but it's an actual medical thing where she dilated but didn't go into labor. So they had to do an emergency C-section on her because she couldn't hold him in. And he came at 26 weeks. So he was super tiny. I could hold him in my hand, and he weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces when he came out. Luckily, he didn't have any like physical deformities or any mental health or any mental struggles or anything like that. He was pretty much fine other than just being super tiny. Problem though, pregnancy, bed rest, all these things that my wife had going on makes you a higher risk for blood clots. And while they did do some preventative things, unfortunately, she ended up being a statistic that got a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that gets sucked up into your lungs, gets stuck in your lungs, and then, you can't absorb any oxygen at that point. So you die because you can't absorb any oxygen. And that happened 2 weeks after my son was born at home when I was with her. So I held her in my arms as she passed away and had to do CPR on her. And, that witnessing that and being a part of that is obviously very traumatic, and it's a terrible thing I would never wish on anybody have to do with their spouse, and that threw me into really, really dark time. My story is very faith-centered, very Christian-centered, because that's like really what got me out of that was my belief in God and kind of leaning on him in prayer, along with going through some therapy and some other things. But music was a big part of how he talked to me. And that's why I was excited to come on this podcast. Because you talk about soul impact and how music saved us. Like, I kind of think like God saved me through some of the messages that he gave me through the music. And that was a big piece of my personal, I guess, therapy. So now, fast forward a few years in the future, like I said, I've remarried and I have a couple more kids now. I wrote a book about what I learned climbing out of that pit. I had to completely change careers. I went away from sales and got into the trades, and now I, go to restaurants and fix equipment all the time, and became very successful at that. Kind of climbed back up pay structure to where, luckily, my main goal was to get to the point where my wife didn't have to work to make our needs met. She only works here and there doing photography for fun money. I cover all of our needs, and I finally got back to that point. And then once I climbed back up to there, I kind of felt like I could finally take a breath and relax again. And then kind of God came out of nowhere, and I suddenly had this super, super strong urge to start speaking and share the story. So that's where I wrote the book. And now I go around. Right now I'm speaking to a lot of students around. I went to Lincoln Memorial University in Tennessee just a few weeks ago. And yeah, so now we're doing podcasts, we're doing speaking engagements, we're doing lots of stuff to try to get the story out there. And yeah, that's the Cliff Notes.
Well, I am truly sorry you went through that. I could not imagine. I had a similar story, but we caught hers at the hospital.
Oh, good.
My son was a twin. He didn't, the other twin didn't develop properly. And so he got pneumonia because when they popped the second amniotic fluid, he was already so far down in the birth canal. And he swallowed that nasty, rotten amniotic fluid. So we spent 15 days up in the NICU unit.
Dang.
So, but she had hemorrhaged.
Oh.
And she got pale. And so I kind of can relate. I mean, they caught my ex-wife's. But yeah, music has always been that, for me, that outlet, and I don't talk about it on a lot of ones because I don't want to push my faith on other people.
Yeah.
Out of respect, but faith has probably been my next to music. My biggest help, my faith, because I know at the end of the day, I'm living my life according to the way God wants me to live. And I believe this podcast is going to go as, be a tool to help with that.
Yeah. Right.
I don't just interview Christian artists. I interview everyday artists that, I do tell them to try to watch what they say on the podcast because I don't, want a whole bunch of cussing because like I said, I want it to be able to where kids can tune in and say, hey, I didn't have a dad and my stepdad was abusive. I can relate to that. Or,
Yeah.
To see people like me and you that we're normal. We put our pants on one leg at a time, and we've dealt with the same struggles of loss, depression, whatever it is,
Yeah. To continue what you were saying about the faith and the music, like, I also think that, yeah, while your podcast, you obviously want to be open to everybody and their stories with music, but there is a group of people out there that faith and music as a piece of their faith is just as big of their life, or even bigger than yours and I's is, And I found that the two ways that God usually talks to me is through something in the scriptures, if I'm, look something up or read it, or through music. Like, most commonly, that's usually how it happens. And that's why music is such a big piece for me, and why I started writing music to try to, I don't know, get some of that out and share what's impacted me in that way.
Oh yeah, I completely relate. When my ex-wife left, it was a very toxic relationship. But I was so conflicted because, like, I had given up my faith to save my marriage. Hindsight's 2020 probably wasn't the smartest decision. But it was so toxic. And a song came on, and I cannot even remember the song or the title or anything. But in the song, it talked about letting go and let God handle it. And I had been talking to God, and I was like, God, if you see it fit for me to move on and heal from this, give me a sign. And I said, if I need to just give up on my marriage because it's so far gone, you tell me. And that song came on, and instantly I got like an instant peace, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
Going 55 miles an hour down the road, I took my wedding band off and flung it out the window. And I wasn't angry. It wasn't like, oh, she's gone, blah, blah, blah. I actually had a peace when I done it, but music has always been, I think music is a lot like scripture. You get out of it what you need at that current moment.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to get back talking about you. Before the framework, the book and the stage, who was Weston Brandon?
Well, I was a kid that grew up rural. I grew up on a cattle ranch, and so work ethic was a big part of my self-identity, and kind of bootstrapping and refusing victim mentality. So, and obviously that's still who I am, but it's expanded into the book and stuff. But that's why I liked initially doing sales. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Florida, knocking on doors and kind of selling Jesus in a way, And when I got done with that, and I mean, I had the most amazing experiences doing that. And that experience, those 2 years on my mission, were really where I really honed in and developed a strong relationship with God and saw some crazy miracles happen, both for other people and for myself. And so that was where kind of the foundation of my faith, the really strong roots came from, was that experience. And then I got home from my mission and decided I was going to go do door-to-door sales, because I figured, I was like, I've been doing this door-to-door thing, I guess, technically for 2 years. Like, what's another few months and actually try to make some money doing it, So I went to Colorado and I sold pest control for a bit. And I met my first wife, my late wife, just before that. And we got married right before I did that. And going and doing the door-to-door thing was emotionally rough, being separated but newly married. So we decided, once I was done with that, and even though I made good money doing it, I was successful, like, let's not do that again. And I decided to go do corporate sales, like software. So I sold mechanical engineering software for a few years, and that actually took me to Texas. And I was living in Dallas at the time that my wife passed away and my son was born. I was living in the colony just north of Dallas. So that I was an absolute go-getter. I was a hunter, really, from a sales perspective. I hunted everything that I wanted, and I attacked it, just tenacity, and just go get it before all that happened.
Man, when did music re-enter your life after the loss? Was it in a form of therapy, or was it a purpose? Like, when you heard it, was it calming and therapeutic, or was it kind of re-gave you a purpose?
It was at first, the first big experience I had with music. Some people if you talk to people who have lost children or spouse, and you're talking about grief stuff, you might hear the term synchronicities come up. Mm-hmm. And what they're talking about is kind of like messages from those that they've lost, kind of a thing. From the other side is the way that they perceive those things. And I experienced some of those through music. And the first one was my song for my wife. For both of my wives, I guess. It kind of makes me sound polygamous, but my first wife has passed away. For my first wife, the song that I was like, this is her song. This is her to me. This is as if I was singing this, was Luke Combs' Beautiful Crazy. And every time every time I play that song, I was like, that is her to a T, what it's talking about. And after she passed away, I remember driving in the car with my mom and just talking about her and, kind of being all up in my emotions. And then that song comes out of nowhere and we're like, oh yeah, this is her song. And I was feeling really, emotional about it, feeling good about it. But then for some reason, the song repeated itself again. It was playing out of like my liked songs on Spotify playlist, and it wasn't liked 2 times in a row, and it wasn't set to repeat either. I checked, but it repeated itself. And so that was like the first, like, oh wow, kind of thing that I got, that I felt through music that she was kind of still there with me. But the second one, the biggest one, was where I felt like God was kind of talking to me and helping to kind of speak peace to my own soul. And I had moved back to Utah by this time. I was back in my parents' basement, basically in the bedroom that I lived in when I graduated high school, except now I have this tiny baby and I'm a widower, And I was very, very angry with the whole situation, very angry with God, and just upset about the whole thing. And I was still praying and just more like yelling at him than really praying, but I was making sure I was still talking to him. And this song, I don't even remember. I think I was trying to get back into work, and I was on the computer in the basement trying to get back into like working my sales list and stuff. And I was playing some music through YouTube, some music videos, and this song come on that was a cover. The song originally, I think it's called "Dear God," and I think it's by is it Hunter Hayes or something? I can't remember, but
I know the song. I know the song.
The version that came on was a cover of that song by one of the guys from a male vocalist group called Anthem Lights. I think his name's Chad Graham. I'm pretty sure that's his name. And he did a cover of that song that I like more than the original. And that song came on, and the song's called Dear God. And the big line at the end of the chorus is, just remind me that you don't mess up. Talking to God. It's like, dear God, just remind me that you don't mess up. And just all the words in the verse were talking about the immense pain and all these things going on. And it just was spit like, this is exactly what I'm feeling right now. So I was getting really involved with it. And just when he talks about, dear God, just remind me that you don't mess up, I remember that hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was more like God telling me, like, dude, there's like, you're not alone. Like, this is part of something, you're not abandoned here, kind of a thing. And that was a big, not a complete, perspective shift, because I still wasn't happy after that, but it was where I it gave me a lot more trust back into God and kind of pointed me back. At least that was probably the hinge point that changed my trajectory from going further downhill to at least starting to turn back up a little bit. I wasn't all the way back up here, but it changed my trajectory to start heading back the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, it's amazing how music has its way of.
Oh, let me bring the screen back on here. It goes to sleep. I need to remember to wake it up.
It's amazing though how much music can really heal one if they truly allow it.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to talk about your framework a little bit.
All right.
You mentioned I looked up, and in looking up I found the DRIVE framework. Why don't you tell everyone what does that stand for, and how did it come to life through your own experience?
Yeah. So the DRIVE framework is what I came up with to try to concisely and simply communicate or teach how I climbed out of that pit of hell that I was in and kind of forced myself to become successful again in a completely different area, and when I decided that I needed to go out and share my story and do this, it stemmed from my experiences training other guys in my work fields. I had been training in sales before all this happened, but then now in this more blue collar job where I'm just fixing kitchen equipment all the time, new guys would come on and they would get assigned to just ride with me on these jobs, and I would train them like every day, all day. And from those experiences training these guys, I realized that there was a lot of character development that had to happen with some of these guys before they could really start to grasp a lot of the technical knowledge, or at least before they could start absorbing it as fast as they wanted to, because they get frustrated that they weren't learning as fast as I did or as this guy did or something. Their progress is slower and they're like getting down on themselves. And I could see that there were masks that they were wearing Like they weren't authentic in themselves because of wounds they had from, I don't know, their childhood or something like that they hadn't resolved. And so they weren't really even, they don't even really know who they are. So, you know, good luck learning a whole lot. And the drive framework was me looking back on like, okay, how did I climb out of that? And how did I force myself to be successful again? What did I learn and what did I do? And as I started writing down, like, these are all the things that I feel very passionate about teaching these guys that I've been training outside of technical stuff. And honestly, I threw it into ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, this is all the stuff that I feel super passionate about. Help me come up with an easy to teach way that somebody else could learn easily and then teach it themselves. And, you know, working with some AI tools back and forth, like how can I explain this? How do I do this? It would come up with these and come up with these, and I tweak it here, tweak it there. And it took me a little while to figure it out, but I finally got down to drive. And once I saw drive and what it stands for, I was like, that is absolutely perfect. That is me to a T. That's exactly what I want to teach. And the D is discover. R is resolve. I is invest. V is visualize, and E is elevate. Now, there's multiple layers to a lot of those, okay? But the first step to, let's just say you have a goal like, I don't know, maybe I'm about ready to graduate high school and I don't know what to do with my life. How do I force myself to be successful in whatever it is that I want to do? How do I even find that, right? Well, D is discover. You got to discover some things, not only about yourself, but about like your purpose on this planet, right? Have you heard of Simon Sinek? He's a famous motivational speaker, dude. There's reels of him on YouTube all over.
It sounds familiar, but I'm horrible with names.
No, you're good. He kind of reminds me of Elon Musk and a little bit of the communication style. But he's famous. He got really famous on a TED Talk for, I think he called it "Start with Your Why," or "Focus on Your Why" or something.
I have seen that one. Seen that one. I watched it in my college.
You know the
class.
guy that, yeah, it's such a famous TED Talk, like millions upon millions of views. And that's what really catapulted him into, like, you know, stardom, is he did this TED Talk in front of like 30 people and he gave that "Start with Your Why," and then it blew up. Anyway, I had heard that, right? Same thing, like watched it in high school class or something like that. And I remember when I was basically just sitting there holding my son and figuring it, like, I remember thinking that like I need to focus on my why so that I can get going. At least that's what I've been told. That's what I've heard. The problem with that, though, was my why was super easy. That was my son. I was holding him in my hands, right? But that didn't help me figure out what to do. It just gave me a lot of motivation, a lot of pressure that I had to do something, you know?
That is very
relatable.
Okay. That is very relatable.
Like, what the hell do I do now? You know? And so I looking back, I was like, well, what I felt at that time, as I was going through therapy, I was doing all these things and really trying to figure out what's going on in my own head and going on in my own heart. As I started to do a lot more work with that, I started to feel this kind of pull on my soul, I guess, this tug on my heart to start going a certain direction, like something was calling to me. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was kind of in this general direction. And at that time, what it was I need security for me and my son. I need security for him, and I need to give him the best life possible. So not only do I need to figure myself out career-wise if I'm sticking with this job or not, but I believe that the best possible situation and best opportunity you can give a child is with a mother and a father who are married at home. Ideally, that would be the best case scenario, and are happily married, right? And obviously you and I have had different versions of our struggles with that, but you know, I think we can all agree that the best case scenario would be a mom and a dad who are absolutely in love with each other and have a nice solid home, right? That's best case scenario. So I'm like, all right, I have to do whatever is necessary inside my own heart and inside my own mind to be open to another relationship again, because at the time I wasn't. You know, thinking of being with another woman after my wife passed away made me absolutely sick to my stomach. I hated the thought. But I was like, I need to do whatever I need to be open to that. So when I talk about discover, I say, if you're thinking like, what is my why? I think of why as another acronym for the question of what hails you. So if you think like there's a trumpet calling to you, like way off in the distance somewhere, you don't know what it is, but you at least know it's in this general direction, right? Like I knew that I needed to get a different job and I needed to start being open to finding another relationship. And as long as I knew at least it was in that direction, it's time to start moving that way as quickly as possible. So I had to discover what some of those things were. I had to discover what my own wounds were, discover what masks I was wearing to hide those wounds, how I was being inauthentic with people because I was ashamed of myself or these kinds of things, and deal with those. And that's where that R comes in for resolve. You got to resolve those things that you discover about yourself that need resolved, right? And
where's the fun in that?
That's the hard work, right? Like, I think, God, I talked to so many young people because I go to colleges and I go to high schools and speak, right? And I've talked to so many young people that I think they confuse that the victory is in the discovery. I'm like, no, sir. The discovery is the first step. You've recognized those things, but too many people, I think, be like, oh, well, I know that I had these particular experiences as a child, and that's why I am the way that I am, and you need to accept me for the way that I am. And I think that's a tragedy to think that way. I think that's a victim mindset. That, like, I'm held back because of these things. I'm like, well, how about we just go and we start resolving some of those things, and we fix some of those things. We start moving towards whatever hails us. And that's where invest comes in. And that's invest in yourself heavily in the direction towards whatever hails you, right? So if you've discovered not only what that is, you've discovered yourself to a deeper level, you've started resolving those things, then you start to get a sense of where that is, and you can start investing in yourself as heavily as possible in that direction. So where that came from me in my, my heavy signature story, I guess you could say, was after my wife passed away. I did eventually meet another. It was actually pretty quick. It was a miraculous thing. I met my second wife only. I offend so many people when I say this. They claim that I don't love my first wife, which is absolutely asinine comment. But I met my second wife. My first wife passed away in April, and I met my second wife in August. So it was like 4 months later or something like that. Ridiculous. Wasn't planning on that, but that's the way it happened. And we got married the following year in about March, so almost a year after my wife passed away. And then I decided I couldn't do the job anymore, and I had to change careers. So I went back to school. I went to trade school. I took a $20,000 student loan and jumped back into school, and I was older than most of the kids in there. But I knew, I was like, I can't guarantee I'm the smartest kid in the room, but I can guarantee that I will outwork every one of you in here. And that played well to my favor, and I got a really good job because of it. And that was me investing in myself towards what I felt was hailing me, right? Towards what my goals were. And then really quickly, the visualize and the elevate, where that comes in. The visualize part is, some people call it manifesting, some people call it goal. It's more than that. I think it's the way that we're taught how to pray, honestly. Since we're having a little bit of a faith-based discussion here, one of my favorite scriptures in the New Testament is in James chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. And it's where James teaches us how to pray. And he says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. And then verse 6 tells you, he says, okay, but when you ask of God, this is what you need to make sure to do to actually get what you're asking for. He says, let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. So you have to believe you'll actually receive it. And then the nothing wavering part, I think that's the part we all screw up. If you think of, let's go with Peter walking on water. When he asked Jesus if he could walk on water, come out to him, Jesus says, okay, go ahead and do it. The nothing wavering part was that he actually stepped out on the water, right? He actually believed it would work. How many times do we ask for something, but then we want to be like, is it going to work? Are you sure? Prove it to me before I actually step out of the boat.
Are you sure about this? Are you really sure? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think so many of us pray that way. And not only because maybe we don't actually believe it, but I think some people, at least for me, I wavered a lot when I would pray because I didn't feel like I actually deserved what I was asking for.
That right there.
I think that's the biggest problem that most of us have. And James says, if you waver, God cannot give it to you. He says, that's not how it works. You have to trust in him, because something about us actually moving forward as if we've already received it, that nothing wavering part, is what opens it up for it to be possible. Because if we never move, he can't, like, he could put it right in front of us, but if we don't step out of the boat, like, it can't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I talk about visualize, I'm like, I write down let's say I have a goal, a particular goal of some sort, then I will write down a journal entry, I guess you could say, from the present tense as if I just met whatever that goal is, as if it just happened. Like I did this with getting the house that I live in right now. Wrote down in as much physical and emotional detail of what it feels like to be living that current reality as possible in the present tense as if we've already received it, and then expressing gratitude throughout that whole, I guess, kind of journal entry exercise for having received it and thanking God for giving it to us. And then pray and act and move forward as if it's guaranteed that it's coming. Like I know it's there and I'm just going to attack it, right? And that's where I believe James tells us, he says, ask in faith, believe that you'll receive, nothing wavering, and it shall be given to you. The word shall is used there, and shall is like a guarantee, right? So I'm like, that's how I did it, and that's how I would write down, like, these are my goals for my career, these are my goals for the house that I want to buy, these are the goals for my family. And let me tell you what, sometimes it takes a few months for it to happen, but it happens every single time. The only other thing that James tells us is, he says, make sure that you ask not amiss. And I'm like, okay, don't ask for things that you shouldn't have. I'm like, okay, well, how do I know that? How do I know if, you know? And so I changed the way that I prayed as an experiment, and it worked beautifully. And this is a few years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. Assuming that God doesn't want to have to command us in all things, and that we're not supposed to be slothful servants. Parable of the talents, right? Just go do good stuff. I'm going to tell him what I want. I'm going to believe that I can actually get it. And then I'm going to tell him, like, hey, this is me studying it out in my own mind and trying to figure out what I think is the best thing to do. And then I'm just going to go do it. But if I shouldn't, then please course correct me. Like, tell me no. But if I don't get an answer from you, I'm going to assume that that's permission to move forward. And I'm just going to be a good steward with what I've been given and try to make the best of it. And as I've done that, like, miracles have happened. And yeah, there's been times where he's told me, no, actually, let's not do that. Or honestly, most of the time it's, okay, that's a good idea, but how about we tweak it this way just a little bit? Like, I get little course corrections along the way. You know what I mean? And just stuff comes like crazy. That's how you make money. That's how you create impact in the world, I think. So that's the visualized part. And I know I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm enjoying this. Go ahead. That's what this is about. Go ahead.
Good. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I share and visualize is how do you, like I said, some people call it manifesting, but how do you actually partner with God to force success the way that you want it to look? I don't believe that of course, a lot of the miracles we read about in the Bible were Jesus deciding how it was going to happen. But a lot of the times, at least half the time, the miracles that happened were not Jesus's idea. The way that it happened was somebody else's idea.
It was the faith other people had. I mean, look at if I could only touch his garment, they had
that's one of the best examples. Yes.
They had so much faith. And honestly, it's kind of sad. It really is. Because that was an era where in order to talk to God, you had to go to the high priest, and you can only bring it to the high priest. So we didn't have the direct line we have now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad for me thinking about it, that when it comes to that, often people lose focus that, all right, we have a direct phone line to God. I mean, and you think of it back then, they walked, we'll even go back before Jesus walked the earth. You look at Noah. Noah had a tremendous relationship with God. He didn't have that, as easy access as we did. And I wholeheartedly believe that. Because in that day and era, they had to go up on Sunday or on the Sabbath. They had their channels they had to go through. It couldn't just be, all right, it's Monday, I need to talk to God, let me in there.
Yeah, they followed the law of Moses, right? There was a lot of ordinances they had to do in their tabernacles and stuff. And yeah, I still think there's obviously something to be said about going to church on Sundays. There's things we can do to intentionally try to get closer to him. But yeah, I think so many people, and not to say that I'm perfect, because I still take it for granted. I'll admit I forgot to say my prayers this morning. I was out the door pretty quick. My bad.
Hey, I struggle with that too.
but I do
oversleep
the
sometimes.
best that I can, and I think that's what's important, that we actually put in effort, and to round out the drive, because I know you got some more questions, to round out the drive framework, the E on the elevate part. I talk about elevate has two different sides. Elevate yourself, obviously, like the way that you think, your habits, and all these things that make you kind of who you are, and elevate, what's around you. Try to have a clean space to live in. But more importantly, to make whatever your success is, whatever your goal is, if your goal is to elevate other people through achieving that goal, then I think God partners with you to make it happen. Because I think, personally, my opinion is that the entire purpose of us being on this planet is to learn to be more like God and to eventually go back to be with him. And that's the whole reason Jesus came here. Is he said, what manner of men are you to be, even as I am, or even as the Father is, right? So
yeah, they even talk about this being temporary. I mean, they really do. They talk about this being our temporary home. I mean, and I kind of want to hit on what you talked about on your drive. Now, that was a hard thing I had to learn how to. I mean, I didn't so use that motto, but more or less the same philosophy. It was one of the hardest things for me, like, to learn how to not be the victim. Growing up, I didn't have the best childhood, so I used that. Well, I didn't have the best childhood, so I don't know how to be a dad. Well, eventually, that philosophy caused me to lose my older kids. And then state kicked in, they took them. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail, but
sure.
We then had another little girl, and during that time before we had our little girl, I struggled with my identity. It's like, for a long time I was a dad, and just like that, it was gone. So I had to learn who I was. And then we had our little girl, and I was like, okay, I'm a dad again. Not that I ever stopped being dad, but I didn't have them there with me.
Sure.
So I had to learn all that over again. And then when my ex-wife left, it was like, not gonna lie, it sent me down a dark road, and the why me. And then I found my faith again, and I was like, all right, God, I know you're going to see me through this. And as I'm starting to work through all those, that drive really is a good philosophy. It really is. But as I'm resolving my issues I have with my ex-wife, I was like, you can't be mad at someone and love them too. And I don't mean like I'm in love with my ex-wife. I don't mean that. But the Bible tells us we are to love one another.
Yeah.
So how can you love someone? And I was at a dark point in my life where I hated my ex-wife because of what she was putting me through. So I had to purposely retrain my mind to like, okay, you don't hate her. You are supposed to love her. And so many times we get caught up in, the big thing for me is the Lord's Prayer. Forgive me as I forgive those who trespass against us.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to forgive my ex-wife, how can I expect God to forgive me?
Right. That's a tall order, right?
It is. I mean, but I think that goes right hand in hand with what your drive. I really do, because, you can't resolve issues without saying, and I'm not saying you've done anything wrong. It was just we're talking.
Yeah.
I can't resolve issues if I have a grudge against you that I'm holding on and be like, all right, God, move in my life, but I'm not going to forgive Weston for whatever he done.
Sure. Well, it's like I think Jesus gave the analogy. I can't remember exactly where it is, but the beam and the moat. Like, can you pull the beam out of your brother's, or can you pull the mote out of your brother's eye when you have a beam in your own eye? He says, first cast the beam out of your own eye, then you'll see clearly to cast the mote out of thy brother's. Oh, yeah. It's basically like a mote in the scriptures. A mote is like a tiny little sliver, and a beam's like a 4x4 beam. So he's like, if you got a beam stuck in your eye, how are you gonna, like, come on, like, you got to fix yourself first, and then maybe you can start to see some things clearly to help some other people. And I think that goes into forgiveness too. Like how can you expect them to fix their little things when you got these other big things in your own life going on?
Yeah, and I will say my walk with God has, since I have, not going to say I don't struggle with forgiveness, because there's some people that
Well, we all do, man.
they still do stuff, and I was like, oh, and I was like, no, no, no. And it's so funny because I don't mean to do it and take God's name in vain, and I don't say like GD or anything, but it's not like, oh my God, get out of my way, I'm in a hurry, kind of thing. And my 3-year-old, she cracks me up. I don't want her to say it, so I've been teaching her other things to say. So I've taught her, oh my marshmallow. So you got to picture this. I'm mad as could be because someone cut me off. I didn't cuss, I didn't flip them off, but like, oh my God, just,
Yeah.
And my daughter in the back seat didn't miss a beat. Daddy, we can't say that. You hurt my heart. What are you supposed to say? So mad as to be, I have to look at her. You're right. I'm sorry. Oh, my marshmallow. So, and it's little things like that we don't pay attention to as fathers. The Bible tells us we are to be the spiritual leader of our home. And a lot of times we think that means sucking up our issues that we have and dealing with it that way. And I am a firm believer in therapy. Whether it's music as therapy or talking to a friend, doesn't necessarily have to be a paid somebody, but you need to have somebody you can talk to that at the end of the day that can help you work through whatever garbage you're going through.
Yeah, you got to get it out, right? There's an organization that it's a nonprofit that I volunteer some time to called the I Love You Bro Project. And it's here in Utah, but we're trying to expand it outside of Utah. But it's free mental health support groups for men. It's like every Thursday night, there's a branch that
I would like some information on that. If I can help that grow, I would like some information on that.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah,
mental health is extremely important to me. I mean, growing up where, we were dealt with suck it up, men don't cry, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, all of them.
Yeah.
Or you're crying, I'll give you a reason to cry. Or
yeah, I heard that a lot as a kid.
It's a long way from your heart.
Yeah, getting men to open up about their struggles is because I wasn't good at it for a long time too. I had to go to actual legit therapy with a licensed therapist and really start to get some stuff out and learn how to, I learned a lot. I honestly did learn to do that a lot of my mission because we would, as missionaries for the Latter-day Saints, you're out there in pairs and twos. And if you're living with another dude 24/7, you're working together to try to accomplish this goal that you have. Like, you're not the same. You're going to butt heads sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have some things that you don't like about each other, and you got to learn how to deal with those and like actually share your feelings. And if it was a pressure cooker of like, how do you have effective communication when you have a disagreement? How do you have effective communicate when you do those things? And honestly, it trained me for marriage. It's like, that's what it did, So because I need to
do one of those.
Hey, maybe because I think when we first get married, like, I don't know, like I was so much in love, like, oh, this person's like so perfect. Like, when you're kind of fresh, you sweep a lot of the things under the rug that would bother you otherwise. You just, because it's so
new, I don't know, you don't want to offend them.
Yeah, something like that. And you just like, it doesn't matter. But then like you get married, you're like 2-3 years down the road and the shit really starts bothering you.
They'd be like, oh my God, why?
Like, why do you think like that? Or why do you do, these things start coming out? You have to have those kind of conversations. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to actually open up your heart a little bit and talk about what's affecting you. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I wish more men were open to that, because I don't know if do you know what percentage of, let's talk about our suicide rate across the country, just in general, on average, what percentage of them are adult men?
I don't know that, but I know it's horrible.
It's really close to 80% are adult men.
I mean, and and part of that you got to put the military in there too, because part of that,
Oh yeah.
they come back and they have no one. A lot of the
Hmm.
times you get them veterans that come back that while they're over serving their country, their wife leaves, or
Yeah.
you know,
Or even if they don't, one of my other things I've done for years, a little side business I've run, is self-defense firearms training, and I have some assistant instructors that work with me that are veterans. And one of them's a former sergeant at the jail here locally, and another guy did civilian contracting, like sex trafficking missions and stuff. And them living a life like that, and in the military, they have such a driving force. Like, this is why I'm doing it, and this brotherhood that they're in. And then they get out of that and they come home, and it's like the sense of purpose isn't really there anymore, and the brotherhood kind of dissolves a little bit, and it's like you kind of start floating around a little bit. And if they don't
then you're all alone.
find, yeah, the loneliness, like one of the unique things in the I Love You Bro project that I work with that they do is every single time a bro comes into a meeting, obviously it's all anonymous, but they're required to fill out just a short little survey and like check boxes like, what emotions are you dealing with right now? Just so we can track like what are men actually dealing with. So when we put together little workshops or something, like we're actually hitting the mark with what they need. And loneliness, of all the men that come through these groups, I think the last number I just looked at last week was 67 or 68% of them checked excessive loneliness, like seriously bad loneliness. And out of that 67%, like at least half of them were married. You know what I mean? Like, it's an
That's
epidemic,
that.
man.
I mean, I was married. I was married and lonelier than I am now, and I will be completely honest.
Yeah.
I don't. It's just me and my daughter right now, but I was lonely in my divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and
You gotta have that connection, man.
that's why I think having fellowship with other Christians is so important. Because, like, I do this thing over here called Men's Encounter, and basically it's a 48-hour weekend where you go and you're at a camp, and you spend 48 hours with different lessons encountering how to become a better man in God's eyes. Well, every Thursday. Every Thursday night, we meet at a church and we talk about them hard issues. Like, it was actually able to help me quit drinking a little bit and, dealing with that. And that's why I think seeing the real life issues that men don't want to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
and they use that excuse, well, it's what my dad did.
Yeah, dude. That
Yeah.
is the generational habits, the generational curses, some people call them, those things are so prevalent. Like being the one to break the chain in
Oh, it's
that
incredibly
way of
hard.
thinking, or it's God, I was very blessed in my life. Some of I guess what you could call are generational curses, and some of those things with like anger issues and all these kinds of stuff. My mother was actually probably the one to really be the first person to break the chain, and then her father kind of followed suit a little bit after, and he turned around while I was in my teenagers, and now they're both like spiritual role models for me. But my mother was really the first one that did that for us, and I got to see her like work. If I had to give the best example of a person that has actually really lived drive and actually done that, it would be my mother before I ever figured it out. Like, she's been such a huge role model for me. And I love my dad to death too. He's an amazing man. But as far as like changing, completely flipping yourself around and discovering yourself, resolving those issues, investing in yourself, and then actually making some shit happen through your visualize and elevate and helping other people. Like, my mother is a pretty damn good example of that, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what amazes me is, like, when people start to see it too. Like, my little girl, I was never told I love you a whole lot by my dad. And I've had to learn to be purposeful, and like with my daughter, I say, I love you. And she says, I love you too. So now she's gotten to where I do it so randomly. She'll come up to me and, Daddy, what, sissy? I love you. I love you too. So it is a hard thing to break. It's extremely hard. But when your kids see you praying, they see you raising your hands to God. Whatever it is you're doing, positive or negative, you know, they're gonna mimic that.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, I mean, since the we've kind of gone away from the music a little bit, but to bring back to music, I think the music that you listen to around your kids has a big thing to do with that too. You know, I listen to a lot of like Christian rock, gospel music kind of stuff, especially when my kids are around. That just resonates with my soul a lot, along with plenty of country and some metal and some other things. Sometimes, you know, my kids are not. My wife actually listens to more metal than I do, so my kids are not. They're not strangers to like Ronnie Radke with Falling in Reverse and some of these, you know, just doing some screamo every once in a while, but they're very familiar with Christian gospel music, and some of the music that I've written, I tried to mimic some of that feel. And when I wrote music to be part of my keynote experience when I get on stage, you mentioned like a men's retreat that you kind of went on. That's actually where that started for me. There's a book that I read that is absolutely amazing called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. And it's all about rediscovering your heart as a man, where you left it behind, finding it again, and then reconnecting it with God. And he talks about the wounds. I in my book, I talk about it. You wear masks to cover your wounds. And then I read his book kind of halfway through writing that book. And he talks the same type of principle. He calls it, you hire a poser from inside yourself, like an actor, to play you while you hide behind it. It's the same thing. But while I was up there at this men's retreat, based off of this book, they were going through some of these sessions. And there was one session in particular where they talked about how men, all of us, even if we had really good dads, we all have a fatherlessness wound that we have to address with God and kind of work through it. And the way that it was described was our fatherlessness wound is whatever the gap is between God being perfect and where our dad was in whatever particular category, right?
Right.
And as I went through that, I honestly couldn't relate. Like it mentally, it logically made sense, but in my heart, I was like, you know what? I just realized that I have some feelings that I'm thinking this is backwards, and I'm viewing my dad as a better father figure for me than God. Because of the things that I'd been through in my life, I kind of felt like God had abused me a little bit and had taken advantage of me and was forcing me to do things, you know, with the whole speaking thing and pressure me to do this, even though I wanted to just kind of chill, you know, and not have to do all that. So I had some issues that I had to work out. And while I was up there at the retreat, they're talking about this fatherlessness thing. And I'm like, holy crap, I have a fatherlessness wound with God himself. And I have to resolve that, you know? So the drive thing, it's not a one-time deal, dude. It's a system. You keep, you know, you work it over and over and over. And we had this vow of silence where we nobody's allowed to talk. We're just out kind of in the trees and in the fields and stuff. And as I'm kind of praying about this fatherlessness thing, and I'm like, dude, I just realized that I think I feel like you've abused me. I didn't realize that I felt that way, but now I do. And then the words came to my mind was, you asked me for this. And not in the sense of like, shut up and deal with it. You asked for this. You deserve this kind of a thing. It was more like that scripture from the Old Testament, Jeremiah, came to mind. The Jeremiah 1:5, I think it's, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And that scripture was kind of bounced around in my head. I was like, dude, I knew you before you came here. You wanted to become, you know, a particular version of yourself. You had some goals for when you came here. And now I don't believe that our entire life is scripted, but I think there's some big key moments that we probably maybe agreed on or something like that. I don't really know. This is the gospel according to Weston. Okay. It's just me. But in that experience, I kind of got the feeling from him that I knew that this was going to happen before I came here, and that this is who I wanted to become. And that you asked me for this. And that completely shifted my whole perspective on everything in my life. Instead of just, I'm being beat up because apparently I'm supposed to be purified as silver or something like that and become a better person. It's like, no, this is creating you into who you wanted to become, the way that you wanted to become, and it's giving you the opportunity to do so. So this isn't me being terrible. This is me, even though I know that it's going to hurt and it's going to be hard and I don't want you to have to experience this. This is me being merciful to you and granting to you what you asked for. And when that happened, I was like, I just started bawling, you know, I could barely keep myself together. And then immediately after that, the words came, it's time to write your song. And I was like, hold on, write my song. What? What are you talking about, man? Because I I didn't know anybody that wrote music. I didn't know anything about music. I mean, I'd done a lot of choir in high school. I was good at singing that kind of stuff, and I had kind of had a feeling that I should probably incorporate music in my message in some way, but I had no idea what that looked like. But when that came, it's time to write your song. I was like, oh shit, pardon my French. I was like, oh man, this is going to be scary. So I was like, I don't even know who to talk to. Now what? So after this, what they called their vow of silence, they rang the bell over by the barn to tell, hey, the next session's starting. Come and meet back up. Go back in there. And so now this thought's swirling around in my mind, like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this music stuff? And I'm like still trying to like dry my eyes, from this whole emotional roller coaster I just went on. And the very first guy that gets on stage, he has a guitar and he says, hey guys, my name's Steve. I help people write music for a living. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me.
There's a slap in the face.
Are you serious? Yeah, I was like, oh shit, no excuse now. Now I have to know. I got to talk to this guy. He didn't end up producing the music for me, but he's the one that got me started on like, how do you even go about writing music, and just talking to him. And, so long story short, now I've got 3 songs. I got a 4th one written. The first 3 they have Christian themes to them, but they're not explicitly like Christian music. They're more, I could perform those at a corporate association meeting. There's just light Christian themes in there you could pull out if you wanted to. But the 4th one, I'm actually going to be in studio Sunday night this weekend recording this song. And that one is explicitly Christian, and it is telling that story that I just barely told you. The You Asked Me for This, and the name of the song is called You Asked Me for This. And it is basically my conversation with God and what he told me. And it's just, oh my gosh, I love it. I can't wait for it to come out. I have a demo version of it with like an AI voice singing the words that I wrote. But probably this time next week, I'll finally get the show track back, and I'll actually have it done and can send it to you. So that email that you told me, like that song, that would be the one I would want to be played on the radio. So as soon as I get that done, like sometime next week, I'll send that to you. You can take a listen to it. I think you'll like it.
Yeah. And if you do want to bump your episode so you can promote that, we can do that as well. We can talk off screen about that. If you want to use this to promote your song, that is something we can do, and we'll talk after the interview about that. So honestly, this is actually quite funny. We have had a natural conversation, and we have covered majority of the questions.
Nice. I love it when you say that.
I do too. So actually, that is funny you mentioned your story about music, because my podcast, I've always felt the urge to do something like this. I originally wanted it to be in person, like a group of people, kind of like a seminar type thing.
Sure.
But then I was like, God, let's start small. And God gave this idea to me. And I was like, okay, I am not starting a podcast. I am a country boy from Missouri that absolutely knows nothing about anything. Well, I have a DJ business. I run a DJ / sound company here in Missouri. And I do a lot of festivals. Well, I met up with this guy named Bubba Starts. And we were talking. It's one of them people you instantly connect with, and you feel like you've been best friends for 40 years. I'm not 40, but it felt like a lifetime. Anyways.
Right.
And I ran the idea while he helped me and him ran sound for that festival. We just got really close, and I said, hey, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it. And he says, okay. Well, I gave him, he had my phone number already because we worked hand in hand with what we were going to use for sound. Well, about 5-6 days later, he reaches out to me and he says, hey, I want to make your vision a reality. Now he runs the Scene Project. He's an award-winning podcaster. And I was like, okay, what's the catch? And that was my initial reaction. Because, and I hate to say it, society has put this, no one can do anything good for you. There's always a catch-22.
Yeah.
And we sat and talked. He's like, no catch. I'm going to teach you what you need to know. And my first episodes, they were horrible. I mean, I went back and looked. That was June 11th was my first episode. And I am 32 episodes in now. Well, I'm actually further than that because I did 3 interviews today. So anyway,
Nice.
and he about 2 months ago he comes to me and he says, "Hey, I want an opportunity for you. I want you to come aboard my network." And I was like, "Okay, but here's the thing. I want it to be my show. I want it filmed my way. I'm not going to change how I run it." He says, "Okay." Well, the mentorship there is kind of like the same thing, that he has just helped me. Like, I make this completely my own. I do the research. I kind of cheat a little bit. I use Chat GPT, and I like summarize who Weston Brandon is.
Yeah.
And I pull your bio from Podmatch. And if you are out there and you're an artist, a little public service announcement for you guys. If you're out there and you're an artist and you want to do the podcast scene, I will drop my podcast or Podmatch affiliation in the link. Look into it. That's actually where I met up with Weston at. It's a great resource. It really is. But
speaking of Podmatch, like, I pay a lady to run the Podmatch for me. Like, I don't even touch it. I don't even look at it. I've never been on the website. So I pay a lady to run. I pay a lady to run my profile. She connects me with everybody. She books it. So I'm at work fixing machinery all day, and then I'll just get a ding on my phone like, "Hey, you have a podcast interview scheduled." I'm like, "Oh, sweet."
Yeah, that's
and I
what
just
she told me.
To do that.
I'm like, man,
she's awesome.
I need one of those. Honestly, I do this, and I do another podcast called Love Noise. It's where we bring artists on, and it's every Wednesday night live to YouTube. And we bring artists on, and they pick 3 of their songs, and they bring 3 of their songs, and me and 2 other co-hosts, we actually review the songs on live, and we allow the artists to tell their story. I mean, this podcast alone, my podcast alone, has opened so many doors. Like next year, I'm actually putting on 2 different concerts for Operation Combat Veteran Suicide. Doing 2 benefit concerts for them.
Awesome.
I'm bringing in different various artists, and a lot of artists have donated their time, and we're going to raise money to help them with housing and stuff. So it's just, this is one hand that's like constantly, eventually I'm going to have to hire somebody to do my posting and all that.
Yeah, you need like a virtual assistant, you know what I mean?
But how has it been mixing your music? We're going to get back to you a little bit. How has it been as a keynote speaker, mixing your music in with your message? How has that changed the way your message is delivered?
Well, I don't get to do the music on every speech because there's some situations where there's just not enough time for it, or the particular audience that they want. They're like, we don't want the music part. We want just the storytelling. But if I can deliver my keynote the way that I engineered it, the way that I want to, the music is woven into the storytelling. It's woven into the whole thing. And specific songs are placed at specific points in the keynote speech. The whole thing lasts roughly an hour, maybe a little over. But it's given it a whole other dimension, a whole other, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it drives home the message so much more powerfully. It connects on an emotional level way more effectively than you could just saying it. Because really, if you think of music, all music is storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. Like good music is storytelling.
Oh yeah,
and speakers, like when we get on stage, that's how we deliver the message. We have to be really good storytellers, because I could go up and I could just give you a lecture on drive, like you need to discover this, you need to do this, you need to resolve these, and I could just sit here and like make you go blue in the face about it, and it's not going to affect a damn thing. But when I tell you like intimate details and I walk you through this emotional roller coaster of me losing my wife and having to hold my son in my hands, and like, how do you climb out of that? And then other stories of other, like where I weave in those stories, like the storytelling is what makes it hit. So then you add the music to the storytelling, and the way that the music triggers different parts of your brain and opens you up emotionally even more. Like, I don't know of a more effective way that you can drive a message home to somebody. It's like how music saved you. Like, I'm trying to save people. That's really what I'm trying to do. And right now, my main audience that I've been trying so hard to reach is young adult men mostly, but just young adults in general that are trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I go into life, graduating school or whatever? Like, how do I launch into life and actually make it happen? And if they'll let me, I lean heavy on the Christian themes. I lean heavily on the faith-based stuff. And actually, for anybody that's listening, I wrote an ebook called God's Laws of Success, Partnering with God to Build the Reality That You Want. And if you go to my website, it pops up. You can download it for free. But that's the message that I really want to get home to people, that not only if you're going through something really hard like I did and trying to rebuild after it, or if you're just trying to build your initial foundation anyways, like, this is how you do it. And then you weave in the storytelling of examples of people that went through these really hard things and actually rebuilt and became successful, whether it's me or somebody else. Like, the fact that they can hook on and hook onto somebody else's story and relate with it, then they can actually start believing, like, well, I can do that too. Like, I can see how they did that, and they experience the same feelings that I'm experiencing. And the music just opens them up to those emotions that might be closed off to otherwise. You know what I mean? So once I started adding the music, like, it started making the speaking engagement that much more effective. But it also, the other thing is, there are very, very, very few keynote speakers, I guess you could say, that perform music live. Like, very, very few. Everybody has their own unique thing that they do that makes them unique. I think you have to be a category of one if you're really going to make it, because you have to be unique enough to stand out. But when I go in and I pitch myself, let's say to a university that wants somebody to come in and talk about, I don't know, maybe a career day or something, right? They want somebody to come in and talk about careers. Wake my camera up again. If I do that and I say, like, hey, I can come in and talk about that, we'll do this just fine. But then I show, like, hey, we're going to do a keynote concert. On average, we have 40% higher attendance from people just because they say it's a keynote concert. Because people are like, what the heck is it? There's going to be live music at this? Like, but it's a speech? Like, how is it? What? And people are just like, I got to see what the hell this train wreck's going to be. You know, so
now you got
up.
my interest. Now you got my interest. I'm gonna need to find one of these. Okay.
I have the very first time that I delivered this keynote concert was to Lincoln Memorial University in Tennessee. And the school told me that they would have the whole thing recorded. And I learned a hard lesson that day to have my own backup footage rolling, because when they got the cameras on me and everything, they got everything set up, but then nobody hit record when I started. So I don't have any of it. I've only got blips of like this here and there of me speaking to other smaller groups around where I didn't get to do some of the music. But you will get to hear some of the music. You will get to see some clips of that, because probably I'm hoping in about a month, I paid about $15,000 to hire a guy to make a mini documentary of my story. And it's just finally done. They've got basically the whole thing kind of rough draft version done. And we got really good cinematic views of me performing my music and speaking and sharing the story, interviews, all that kind of stuff. And later, I think in like a week and a half, we're going to meet up for lunch, and he's going to show us the whole produced film on his laptop. And, we'll give him some feedback on some things to tweak. And then after that, we'll set a day that'll be put up on YouTube. And hopefully in a month, you'll actually be able to watch it. It's going to be maybe 10, 12 minutes long, and you get to see pieces of it. But yeah, that's the one thing that I still don't have is the entire keynote concert recorded that you can watch from start to finish.
Just go live on TikTok.
Yeah, I've got pieces of it. I've got this song here. I've got that piece of this speech here. You know what I mean? But I have some powerful stuff coming up for some religious groups and faith-based groups. I'm actually going to be flying to Texas to speak at a widows and widowers conference, and I'm going to be doing a keynote concert there. So It's inside of the church building in the chapel, so I don't know how they're going to be about recording that, if they'll let me or not, but I'm going to see if I can work something out to be able to do that and actually get some better footage of it. But yeah, I guess really long answer to your question, like how does that affect it? Like it's just made it unique. You know what I mean? Like the whole reason that the Lincoln Memorial wanted it was because I was connected with the guy who was the president of a veterinary business management association chapter there. And he needed a speaker, and his wife went to high school with me. She's like, hey, I know a guy that's doing that. You can, have him come out. So they paid me a couple grand to come out there and do the keynote concert, and they freaking loved it. And I got some awesome video recorded testimonials of it, and it really drove it home. And there were some people in there that were crying, and some people sent me emails afterwards that it completely changed their life. And then I got some reviews like that was a waste of my time. I'm like, oh, well, sorry you hated it, but most other people loved it. I think that's how it always goes, though.
Yeah,
You're always gonna have
you always are going to have haters. That's how you know you arrived. I've learned the hard way with my DJ business. When you've got haters, that means you're doing something right.
Yeah, there you go. I think, if you're doing it, if you just plan on about 10% of everybody that you meet is going to hate it, then it's about what it works out to. Like I went on a podcast called We're All Insane, which is he has like 800,000 subscribers on YouTube. I flew out to Maryland for it. And that episode just posted like a week ago, maybe. And God, the people in the comments that are so angry that I remarried so fast or something, like all the evil things that they're saying about me was ridiculous. It kind of messed me up for a minute. And like for a couple of days I was depressed because like, oh my gosh, like that was terrible. I shouldn't have done that. But then, you have the people mess you like that was incredible. That I need to send that to my dad, or these kinds of messages come through. You're like, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm not at that point where I've taught, I don't know what's next for me relationship wise. I'm not really thought about it right now. I'm just focusing on being the best dad I can be and providing for my daughter the best I can.
Just don't shut yourself off to it. You know what I mean? Like if you don't feel like it's something you want to chase right now, that's totally up to you. But like, I would just from my experience, I'm like, just, if it happens, like don't throw it away, man.
Oh, if it happens, I'm going to let God, if he's going to put someone in my life, he's going to slap me in the face with it. He's going to have to. I'm at the point now where
I told him the same thing. I was like, dude, I don't know where I'm at mentally with all this. So you gotta like, really hit me with this. And he did.
He has, I have been talking to God about that because, I do believe it's important to have a husband and wife that love each other. I do. And God's kind of been laying it on my heart to prepare myself. So I don't know. So I'm not going out there looking for a wife, but
don't make it harder for him to get you one, though.
God has a sense of humor, I tell you what.
Oh man, yeah, he does.
So if someone's listening and feel like they're at the end of the rope and they've lost everything and they just don't know where to go, what advice would you give them?
I think I got to go back. I mean, I lean so heavily on faith. I mean, that's been a huge theme of this whole interview, right? Our relationship with God. I believe that, it might sound corny to go back to my framework, but that's the whole reason that I made it, right? That self-discovery, discovering who I am to God. Like I couldn't have figured anything else out if I didn't go to God and really let him tell me who I was to him. And that first song that I told you about, that Dear God, the one that Hunter Hayes, but the one I listened to was a cover by Chad Graham, I think. That was after some serious prayer and asking him to talk to me, and he did it through music. You have to be willing to dive into the engine room of your soul. And I think when you go through really heavy struggles like this, you have a unique opportunity because that pain and that stress gets you a lot closer. It might even throw you inside of the engine room of your soul. And what I mean by that is it gives you access to a piece of your soul and a piece of your brain that most people have a very hard time finding. And what you find in there is the experiences that you had that develop you into who you are. And you get to decide if the way that you let those things shape you is actually serving you or if it's hurting you. And if you're going to change the way that you think about those things, or if you're going to change the way that you behave because of those things. Like when I say entering into the engine room of your soul, like you go into the boiler room and you see what's in there, what drives you and what makes you who you are. And you get to decide whether you're going to keep some things, whether you're going to completely throw some things out, or whether you need to overhaul some things. And that's why I named the book that I wrote The Overhaul, because that's what my process was I had to overhaul myself. You know
And
what I
I'm
mean?
going to have to look those up.
Yeah. It's on Amazon. It's $20. You can buy it. I'm trying to do, well, I'm not trying yet because it's going to cost some money, but the next thing on my list is to do an Audible version, do an audio book, because that's how I usually do books, through audio.
If I can find it online, you can download this app. What's it called? I don't remember what it's called.
I use Speechify to do like AI audiobooks.
I use Read Aloud.
Oh, there you go. Then yeah,
I'm in college. I'm in college. I ain't gonna lie, and I have used that Read Aloud to read my classes I have to take online. So,
oh yeah. Well, there you go. Hey, the ebooks, the ebook I think is $10.
All right, I'll definitely have to look it up, and that sounds very interesting. I have a hard time reading books because I don't find them very interesting sometimes.
Yeah, the very first part of the book I admit is a little bit academic because I felt the need to lay out some serious groundwork on how the world works, like some physics stuff, so that you could understand some of what I'm talking about later in the book. So I've had a couple of people tell me like, yeah, those first chapters kind of felt like reading a textbook, but it got really good after that. So I'm more quoting my wife in that she she had a hard time for the first couple of chapters, but it's written assuming that the main audience reading the book is other men like me, my age or younger, most likely. And who I was writing the book to was kind of.
I guess it's not for me. I guess it's not for me. Just kidding.
But I think you'd like it. But to really quick recap on, to make sure I answer your question appropriately, like what would my advice be? It's don't be scared to go into the engine room of your soul. Specifically, while you're in there, figure out not only what your wounds are, that have nothing to, they might not even have anything to do with the particular trauma that threw you into that engine room. It might just bring some of the old ones to the surface. That's what I experienced. And then be willing to stare those things in the face and actually figure out what they are and not run away from them. And don't be a victim about it, because we all have shit that we're dealing with. We all do. But if you let that define who you are and let it define your opportunities in life, you will stay at the bottom of the barrel the rest of your entire life, and I guarantee you that. But if you will actually resolve some of those things and then invest in yourself heavily, then the world is yours for the taking, man.
No, absolutely. That kind of ties into one of my favorite quotes. I don't know who said it, but it's, you win if you don't quit. Yeah. And a lot of times, I hate to say it, but we talked about suicide. And if you're out there, and I make this little PSA every podcast. If you're out there and you are one of them people struggling, get help. It's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to need help. And we're often in a society where we're not told you're loved. You are loved. No, I may not know you, but I love you. God loves you. Just remember, you're not alone. Well, Weston, I want to thank you again, buddy. I have thoroughly enjoyed this interview. I got one last question for you, and you hit on it a little bit, and I was hoping you would naturally go into it a little further, but you didn't. What does soul impact, how music saved us, truly mean to you personally?
Music is one of the most effective communication tools that we have, because so much more is communicated in the music outside of the words. You know what I mean? Like, people say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm like, no, I think songs are worth 1,000 words. I think music is. And I really think that you get the right song with the right message, that Like the Spirit of God can drive that home. There's something I would like to study this more from neuroscience perspective, kind of thing, like what happens in our brain when we're listening to music. I would like to dig into that more and see what is it about the music that opens us up to more of that emotional connection to actually dive deeper into ourselves. I think there's something there. And I think that God engineered it that way. I think God has used music for forever. You know, music is a huge part of, look at just about, well, hell, I'm not aware of any culture that has never utilized music in some sort. You know, there's different styles of music for different cultures, but music has always been a key part of just our existence on this planet through human culture, and it's how we've expressed ourselves. And I think that because I believe that we all have a piece of God in us, that we have a piece of divinity in us, I think the music is a part of that. And I think God expresses himself through music too. And we're tapping into a little bit of that when we listen to music. And because of that, I also think it's very important that we pay close attention to the kind of music that we're listening to, because I also think as much as God uses music, I think the enemy, devil, Satan, whatever you want to call him, can use music too to tear you apart. And so I think it's our most effective tool to dive into our minds and to communicate with each other, in my opinion.
So I couldn't agree more. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
So most of what I do is on Facebook. You just go facebook.com/Weston Brandon. Do almost everything on there. TikTok, I've hated social media. I don't like doing it, but I have to go where the people are. And so I'm on TikTok. I post all my speaking clips and podcast clips, from there. Usually I record pieces of this, but I kind of forgot about it to do this one. So hopefully I can get a recording after. Instagram and TikTok are both Weston G. Brandon. Facebook and YouTube is Weston Brandon. And then obviously my website is just westonbrandon.com. And I would really encourage people to check out that ebook that I made. That's the whole purpose I wrote it, was like, how does this guy think about success and partnering with God to do it? And I wrote it all down, like, this is what I do. This is how I live my life. And go check it out.
Really, and y'all, I say this every time. Remember, you're loved. You're not alone. And also, if you will, go support Weston and show him some love, because that's what this is about. We got to pull together as a community and encourage one another. So until next.
One tiny little thing, if you're in Utah and you are one of those people that's really struggling, if you're a guy that's having some struggles, you need to get some things off your chest, look up I Love You Bro Project. We've got groups in most of the major cities in Utah. We just opened one up in Twilla. We got Salt Lake, Provo, Pleasant Grove, American Fork, West Jordan, Salt Lake City. We're opening up Heber. I know we're opening up St. George soon. Once a week, we just get together for an hour and a half as men and just talk about the shit that's going on. And yeah,
is that a virtual thing?
No, it's in person. We meet in person, face to face.
Well, we may have to figure something out so I can be part of this. Just kidding.
And maybe we'll have to open up a virtual group. I don't know. The guy that runs it, his name's Joe, and maybe I'll talk to him about that.
But yeah, again, I want to thank you, buddy. I have really enjoyed this conversation. But until next time, guys, I love you and you are loved.